Minutes early. Does anybody object if we start right before 10?
It's 10.
No.
It's 10.
My cell phone doesn't. I would like to welcome you all to this town hall meeting. Today, we're going to talk about first service residential and whether you are for retention of first service residential or you're against. I expect that this will be a civil conversation. Like Jackie said, people will come to the microphone and present. Jan and I both have a slide presentation. Jan will go first and present some financial information. This is intended to be interactive, so you can speak after each slide if you would like. You may ask questions, you may have an opposing point of view. The only thing that I ask is that this be a civil meeting. Jan, would you like to start?
Yes. Okay, I'm Jan Frink, I'm the treasurer, and what I'm going to do is just give you some ideas of some positive things that have taken place here since we've taken first service on board. Okay, so what am I doing this as first service? Residential native. With the help of GM Alex Fambry, they've reduced the 2014 payroll year-to-date November of $89,357. The way they did that, or she did that, was she changed the tennis pro position to a contractual. So instead of getting a salary, he's on a 80-20 split, doesn't receive a paycheck from us. Changing aquatics instructor, architectural supervisor, and assistant youth director to part-time. Those things combined allowed us to reduce the 2015 budget of payroll by $141,834. She also has cross-trained staff and made it leaner. She improved staff's skills. They do live lessons and online training. She revised and formalized all job descriptions. With first service residential, we've had upgraded some computers. We've added sophisticated proprietary software for accounting and the architectural department. We improved investment yields. When they first came here, we were averaging, these are averages, okay, 0.08%. And when we took on first service, they've increased that to 0.27%. And they had something called a first service online university. So they established that too.
Can you go over that again, Jan, because it's difficult to read.
Sure.
If that was larger, it would be a lot easier.
It's hard to make them fit. All right, they upgraded some computers. They had a sophisticated proprietary software for accounting and the architectural department. If Pete from architectural happens to be here, I'm sure he could say something to that. We've improved investment yields from prior to when they came. Before they came, it was 0.08%, and it is now 0.27%.
And what, that investments in what?
Well, we accumulate large sums of money every year.
Right.
Okay, and it's split up into various funds that we use.
Right.
Okay, and different funds have to be in different types of accounts because
Of the amount.
not because of the amount, but because some money has to be available every week for checks, and other money is more long term.
Right, but what I'm going to question is that 0.27% on almost $3 million?
Right.
We can't do better than that?
I would say.
I mean, just a CD locally, we could get 1%.
Well, things changed. You know, as you know, for a while, interest rates on any type of account had gone down for quite, gone down a lot. And yes, now they're on their way back up. So yes.
So everybody here is okay with 0.27% on
No.
$3 million? Okay, I just wanted to be sure about that.
I think the point is that it's been increased from 0.08 to 0.27, so not that it can't be better, but just in the time that first services managed to increase it, so we would hope that would.
You're supposed to go to mine.
Okay, well then let me
I
ask.
think this is an important point and people may have questions. So if you would like to respond to this, please come up to the mic if you'd like to form a line.
And state your name.
State your name, please.
Okay.
My name is Lucy Crouch. I live on 2413 Valley Road. My question is, I got a copy of the financial and the return. And when I look at, we got $10,084 on our return of investments, which is 0.27%. But then I look at the bottom of the page and it says, First Service Financial is an affiliate of First Service Residential and may receive a fee from the partner first of financial institutions listed above for their assistance in the development, placement, and the servicing of this program. Then I get a little bit more interest and realize that at the top of the column for that $10,000, it's our net annual interest. I'd like to know what the gross is, because I figure somewhere between the gross and the net is that fee that's being paid. And I would just like to know what that is.
Did you have an answer for that, Alex?
We can get an answer from Eric Camp. I know I can't give you that off the top of my head.
Okay, but if we didn't have First Services and we were investing our own money, whatever that difference is, would be back into the homeowners association.
No. Fees paid by the bank
Well,
for
I
using
know,
their services.
okay, there is gonna be a certain amount, but let's find out what that is, because I have a feeling it might be a little bit more than what we could get if we went out on our own.
But please realize when you were on your own, your investment yield was 0.08 is the point that Jan was trying to
Right, but I think I've got some money invested and I think we can do better, just from my own personal experience. And if I could ask you to go back to that very first slide that talks about the 2015 budget, there were a couple of points I wanted to make. We've got here that we have in the 2015 budget a reduction of $141,834, and we do have that. But I'm going to challenge that it was First Services that did that. For example, we had an assistant general manager position. It was created by the board of directors, supposedly, and the person that was in that position was a lady named Dawn Lawrence, and she left. And when she left, our general manager went to Alex Crawford and asked Alex Crawford if we could replace that position with 2 part-time positions that would actually be more than 40 hours. So what we were going to see was an increase. The reason that position didn't get filled is because Alex Crawford said no. The other thing you have to think about is that she lists the savings on the sheet I got from Alex Fambry, that saved us $48,750. On that same list of savings, she says that we did not replace the architectural supervisor, which is another savings of $41,600. Those were the same positions. So part of that $141,000 you're seeing is actually half of that, and it wasn't because of our general manager. It was because when she asked for permission to fill the position, she was told no.
I have to dispute part of what you said.
I'll let you do that in a minute, and I'll let you have this microphone. The other savings, the tennis pro, that was not First Services that eliminated the tennis pro, it was the membership. The membership demanded that that be taken away because it only suited the members of the tennis club. And Chrissy, if you want to get up here and dispute it, you can.
I will.
All right, come on.
Before you do, could I say something? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Lucy, you met me. I'm
Lucy
Bill's wife.
Crouch.
One of the egomaniacs on the board.
Okay, all right. Okay, Lucy. Let's see. I got my numbers off the financial statements.
That's where mine come from, and from what Alex Fambry gave me. Well, gave my husband.
Go ahead.
Mike Work, 2628 Citrus. In response to that interest issue, our board is the one that initially when we took over, the investments were in an extremely conservative goal, and it was 0.08. And what we had done was propose to the membership a variety of, a litany of aggressive portfolios. And essentially, we decided, yes, we could make a hell of a lot more money, but again, it's our money, and we wanted to put those things in bonds, essentially. There's a lot of that, which was better than CDs, but you're not going to go put into some gold fund, some international fund. You most certainly could. Those are paying 15–20% a year. But again, we wanted to put those in vehicles that would not have pretty much any chance of losing money, and they are FDIC insured. A lot of those aggressive other vehicles are not. So you have to keep that in mind. We can certainly do
My
that.
only question was, are we happy with 0.27%?
I'm not happy with it.
Okay, that
but-
was my
but-
question.
But it's lesser of all evils. That's what you really need to do for us folks.
Okay.
It's something that's not gonna go anywhere, and it's insured.
Okay, and the other question I have is just please show us the difference between gross and net. I think we need to know what that is.
And with reference to the tennis pro, the reason I can speak to that is because I was part of that. Alex, every single employee up here belongs to First Service, and Alex and I had a long discussion when the tennis pro was put on essentially it was about a 3-month probationary period, because at some point you say, okay, fish or, cut bait or fish. And in the initial 3 months of his probationary period, we continued to lose money. We had a discussion. She actually called me immediately and said, this is what I want to do. We're going to have to get rid of Jenny. And essentially, we weren't going to wait to find another pro. We cut that immediately. Cost went to 0. And they went on a search for tennis pros. It took about, I think, Gene Patrick, you could tell me, it was 6 or 8 weeks it took. It took some time to find her. And the contract was 20-80 split. So again, we make money purely from her activities. Obviously, we still have the cost of maintaining the courts, but that's already figured in. So again, it was First Service and Alex that made that call as the boss to terminate the tennis pros contract.
Can I ask a question without coming to the mic? I just want a question.
No.
At some point, it'd be nice to have a timeline for people who don't exactly know what was the date First Service started, so we can kind of have in our mind the timeline. Does anybody can tell us that? When did First Service take over?
October 18, 2012.
Okay, thank you.
And how long was their agreement
When
supposed to go to? How long was the contract?
2-year contract, I believe. Is that right, 2-year contract?
Currently, it's a 2-year contract through October of 16.
Beth Walter. I just want to point out one thing. The assistant general manager position was created by a previous board.
Right.
My problem is you should not have one person on the board decide that that position is no longer available. There's multiple decisions that should be made by the board, not by one person on the board.
Well, let me stand corrected. That was made by Alex Crawford during the budgeting process. So there were other people in the room. I should not have made it sound like it was one person. My point is that we can't give First Services credit for that savings, because the reality is that First Services asked to fill that position. And they asked to fill the position with 2 part-time positions that was more than 40 hours. And when the people involved in the budget process said no, First Service is taking credit for that savings. And I'm just telling you,
Okay,
that's not how it
fine.
went down.
But I just want to point out
Everybody
that
know that.
decisions are being made
By one person.
by one person instead of the entire
Well-
board.
Okay. I should not have said it the way that I said it. It was done during the budget process.
And Lucy, I was greatly involved in the budget process.
Right.
Before I became treasurer.
Okay.
I was there through most of December, and I don't remember, September, and I don't remember that specifically coming up at all.
Well, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
that was how I was informed.
Right.
After I challenged this list that was put by Alex Fambry in my husband's box, okay?
You may need to go up and get back in line.
I might need to. Y'all, I'm just saying, they can't take credit for that. Our board gets credit for that reduction of the
Yeah, I
budget.
mean,
Our board,
it's
not
under their
First
watch
Service.
regardless, but
Yeah.
Ladies and
I agree,
gentlemen.
I agree with you,
Excuse
let's
me.
get in line if we're gonna talk.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that includes, I don't mean to be rude,
Yeah.
but that includes you. If you want to speak, please.
Well, yeah, well,
Please step up here.
thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome. Good morning, everyone. I was the president of the board, and some of the statements made earlier were incorrect. Alex Fambry came here after the manager had been relieved. She had violated state law and was asked to leave as manager. So Alex hadn't been here yet. I had instructed Alex to get rid of the tennis pro. I personally told her more than once, and she refused to do it. And the reason I wanted the tennis pro to be terminated is because it continued to lose money. And in my mind, if a program loses money, not every homeowner should be paying for it. It should be able to stand on its own. There has never been a provision to pay anybody or support any program within Holly by the Sea. So there's other issues where we've lost lots of money. As a matter of fact, we lost thousands of dollars when it was robbed in our office where we collect our dues. There were 2 individuals in that were in charge of money. Neither one of them was let go. And the fix for that was, well, we'll put a camera in now that the money's gone. We had other damages, and I addressed this to Alex. And the other thing is we had damages down in the bathroom down by the pier. That wasn't even reported to the police. They didn't even bother to do that. I questioned, somebody had done some damage to the ball field, driving around the ball field. I said, well, we can get him because we have a camera by the gate. And I was told, well, sorry, but the camera doesn't work. So I said, well, get the camera fixed. Next thing I hear about the damage in the bathroom, I said, well, we'll get him now because we got the camera fixed, right? Nope, camera was never fixed. To this day, I don't think the camera's still fixed. Your money is at risk every day here that they don't have the security on those gates and the other places. We have 4 cameras on the tennis court. 4! And none on the access gate to the rear of the property. That sounds ridiculous to me, and it should to you also. But I wanted to see our assets protected. We're not about employees. The association isn't. It's hard to say that, but we're not. Our business as a board, our responsibility is to folks, you folks sitting here. That's their responsibility. That's the board's responsibility. Has nothing to do with the employees. The employees are here because you pay your dues. You don't pay your dues, employees wouldn't be here. And that's where the importance lays, is with you. And I think it's lost sometimes about, oh, well, this company is doing all this stuff for us. They're not doing anything for you, really. I mean, it's really a simple operation. And I think sometimes companies make it difficult. And it should be a simple process. I think they've made it more difficult from a personal standpoint. She's refused more than once to do many things. I had safety issues I had to address to her and threatened to call OSHA if she didn't resolve them. When you have water leaking out of the building there, and I was told that, well, we've got blowers, drying the floors. Well, who plugged in those blowers on that wet floor? Employees. And if they've been killed or hurt, you would all be paying for it. So I think that's negligence on their part. And it's been addressed over and over and over again. And I want to thank you for your time. I hope I didn't take too much of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I continue and then you could come up and talk?
You said after each slide.
Yeah.
All right. Benefits of the management company would be less chance of fraud. You know, when our accountant does her financials, somebody in the other office in Dustin has to check on them and get back to her and make sure, she has to approve them, whatever. Leverage relationships with banks, insurance companies, security companies. It'd be like if you went down to the store, who gets the better deal? The person who buys one thing or the person who buys 500 of them? So, point being that being with First Service, we're one amongst many, so we should be getting better deals. Let's see. So, mine was very brief. So we've seen some of the things that they've done for us, and yes, they've been disputed. And I'd just like to make the point, before they came in 2011, our budget was $1,723,166. And this many years later, in 2015, it's $1,637,000. My point simply being here that somebody had commented to me that they cost us a lot of money, and I felt that if they were costing us a lot of money, then our budget by now would be far larger than what it currently is. And that's all I had.
But how much of that that 1.6 million is going for
Use the mic, please.
payroll?
Payroll is the biggest part, obviously, of our bill.
I can give
It
you
was
that.
before First Services too.
That's right, it was before. Payroll always is the big part, always.
Yes, it was. The labor cost for Holly by the Sea in the budget for 2013 was $877,000. The labor cost for 2014 was $948,000. So for that year, which was the first full year that the labor was budgeted under first service, the difference is $71,000 more than it was the prior year. So labor costs have gone up. Now, what's interesting to me about labor costs is when labor cost goes up, who benefits? You know who benefits? The person who's carrying the payroll burden. So in addition to what we're paying in wages and benefits, First Services gets 25% of that just to process and bear the labor burden.
That's not.
That each year, the difference, let me say this. They charge 25%. The industry average and the industry standard here locally in Navarre is 17%. In fact, we've talked to Lander, and that's what Lander will charge us. So 17, 25 doesn't sound like a whole lot of a difference, but the difference is actually over $50,000. It's $50,748. So there's another piece. Our annual contract with First Services is only $47,000, but they're making more of that just in the payroll burden that they're charging. So the bigger the payroll is, the more employees we have, the more money they're making, the more that 25% becomes. Now, I have a problem with that kind of an incentive. Did that answer your question?
My name is Scott Schillenberger. I live on Sunrise Drive. I would like to point out, as to your point, you're talking about the contract with First Service. Did the board not negotiate that contract? Which board was it? And the board bears responsibility. So to stand here today and blame First Service for what their fees are is not right. We negotiate. If we had a board that was negotiating poorly, I'm personally glad that I have a second or third party or a check and balance against my board to stand up and say, wait a minute, this isn't the right thing to do. You know, in any good organization, you have an elected body, and then you have an executive that can have a strong position to say, wait a minute, this necessarily isn't the right thing to do. So when we stand up here and we say, Alex has said no to this, or didn't want to do that, or was in conflict with the board, I feel that's a good thing. Our country, our homeowners association works better when we have opposing opinions and we come to a common agreement. So I don't know, my main point was to stand up here and say how much the board, you know, how much we're paying for fees, how bad our investment income might be, how much the company charges us for fees. Well, why don't we, instead of throwing someone out, why don't we go back and say, we're not happy, renegotiate, instead of throwing someone out. People who got a good deal because our board was too weak to negotiate a stronger deal.
My name is Phyllis Klon. I live on Masters, and I just want to kind of support a little bit what he says. Management companies are not purely about money. I used to do property management for retail, and it's not as simple as, oh, just collect the money and oh, we'll do this, and here's, you have insurance, you have, like you said, you know, it's just required. We couldn't even get the right permits to do the erosion control because someone didn't check behind it. You need to vet people, you need to make sure you have insurance. The management company is also that buffer between you because they are responsible. And again, in the contract it should be written.
What do you mean by insurance?
They bear the burden of making sure we have liability, you have workman's comp, anybody that's on here doing work, all that should be done.
Yeah, it is done. We have insurance. Anybody who's doing contract work on our property is insured. Okay. I'll stand up here with you.
No, I understand. All I'm trying to say is the management company, this is not purely about monitoring what they say.
Right.
They are the buffer sometimes where if there's a problem, it should be in the contract that you need to go back to them going, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. The liability becomes theirs, not ours. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't make this all about.
Let's stop interrupting the person that's at the
I'll
mic.
sit down. I'm not sure that's correct.
All I'm saying is, when I did property management,
Okay, I'll let her talk.
we did retail development, we outsourced to property managers. We chose to take it back to save money. I'm just going on my experience.
Okay.
I did it on small properties, not something this large. All I'm saying is it's not as easy as some people make it out to be. So don't make it all about money. That's all I'm saying. Look at everything that's involved. That's all I had to say.
Yvonne Harper, I live on Olympia Street. I can understand why Bill's not here, but this conversation that we're having now should have been had in December.
What?
There, excuse me.
Why
Let
was
me-
Bill not
Let
here?
her speak. Stop interrupting.
Okay, that's fine. Why was he not here?
Well, my
Don't get in
understanding,
line.
if he's here, that would constitute a quorum, so.
That's
because
not the
he's-
reason.
Okay, well then I don't know why he's here, but the point being, this conversation that you're wanting to have on behalf of your husband, and I understand, you know, this is kind of personal because he's your husband. He's a board member. This conversation about the benefits and disadvantages or no benefits with work services should have been had the last board meeting, and then at least a 30-day period allowed for public input. That is not what happened. And so that is really, in my opinion, the point of this meeting, is we were not, as a homeowners association of members, allowed to voice our approval or disapproval of First Services. Maybe they're not the best management company, maybe we shouldn't have a management company, but as another member stated, that was discussed ad nauseum by a previous board. I know because I covered them. I covered those meetings. They interviewed, they went through the process in an appropriate way. They allowed for community membership input. And then they selected the company who they thought would best represent this homeowners association. For this board now to come into a meeting with an item on an agenda that says discussion, and then they vote and then give a letter to the First Services, that reeks of collusion prior to the meeting, and that is not what we have. Those board members represent everybody, and two of the board members were blindsided. So for me, it's not whether or not First Services is the best. It is about the process, and we were not allowed input into that process. And another thing, when it comes to what they have to pay, there's mandates that come down from the federal government, like your health insurance, that we have no control over, that they have no control over, that they have to provide. And what I would like to see is your payroll, not from 2013 to 2014, but from 2010, 2011, to when First Services took over, because that gives you an accurate comparison, not from one year to the next when they've had that contract. So I wish he was here because I would like to say these things to him, but he's not, so that's why.
The reason my husband is not here is because he's volunteering right now for the First Responders Walk. That was a commitment he made long before this town hall meeting was planned. I am not here speaking on his behalf. I am here speaking on behalf of the association. I am an informed member of the association. Yeah, I am.
Ladies and gentlemen, let her speak. She has the microphone. If you want to respond, please get in line.
I agree that it was a board that hired First Services. But now what we have is a board that's evaluating the value of the services that they're providing. And that board has come to the conclusion, the majority of the board, that that service is not worth what we are paying for. They are looking at your best interest and how your assessment fees are being spent. And that's what this is about. Thank you.
TownHall Jan, PJ Boulevard. I have just one very small thing to say.
We need to talk in the mic if you don't mind.
Excuse me. My concern is the very first project that this board took on without First Services, the erosion project, has turned into a disaster. We've spent $55,000 for something that doesn't work. We've gotten ourselves embroiled with DEP and the county. We've committed another $15,000 just to try to straighten that out, and we have no idea what the future costs of that particular adventure are going to be. Now, the board decided to do that on their own. They decided they didn't need the checks and balances of First Services. They didn't need anybody to vet the contractors. But it turned out that was not a good decision. And my question is, if they managed to follow that thing up, What are they gonna do with a $1.6 million budget with nobody helping them at all?
Rob Danner, 6661 Fairmont Street. I personally have about talked out on these subjects that we've been discussing here, but John must have read my mind, because what I wanted to say in support of what this young lady said, if First Services has been allowed to do the job that we pay them for contracting, we might not have thrown away $55,000 back here. And that's all I want to say.
Can anyone tell me what the original charge, what the original cost was for Roads Inc. when they initially did the erosion project? Does anyone know what that figure is? I don't know the exact figure. I know it was over $200,000. And in that contract, it stated that there was no warranty on that work. Now, if y'all want to talk about the $55,000, go ahead and throw that number around. But let's also talk about the in excess of $200,000 that we paid Roads Inc. to do the initial project, and it didn't even last but a couple of months. As soon as we had some flooding, it was gone.
It was a 500-year reign.
Well, but it was also not properly done.
Nothing would stand up to that.
As far as the erosion and Roads Inc., I was disappointed, not with their work so much as it was engineered. And you would hope it was engineered that you could hold. I'm sure we could have held his feet to the fire, probably brought him to court, because it was engineered. Even for a 100-year reign, what took place shouldn't have. They never finished the project. Okay, parts of it were still having to be done. I believe Alex made a statement in one of the board meetings that they couldn't be held liable for rain. There was a clause in, there's no such clause in there about rain. I think they should have done the right thing. They did offer to give us, I don't know what it was, $25,000 credit.
Yeah,
So,
but the second contract was going to be another
but here's where the other problem lies. When you don't tell the board that you have 120 days, you shouldn't start work on anything having to do with that erosion for 120 days, at least. And the reason being, by law, you have to give the company that failed, or in your opinion that failed, the opportunity to fix or repair their work. And that's I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I was told by a lawyer, and so were the other board members at the time. I think it's a failure on a company's part not to make the board aware of that. And so they do travel, the board travels down alternate ways. I know, being a board member, we don't know everything about everything. It would be nice if we did, but we don't. A company such as First Services, I would expect they would at least give them that basic, well, you know, here's some of the options you have, which is take them to court, but don't do anything for 120 days, and this is why you shouldn't do it. I don't know if that was done. I don't think so, because I sent an email and asked how come you did this work without, you know, being notified about the 120 days and given the option to get some of your money back. And that's really a big buck item. And when you talk about cost, when I told you about the money being taken, this contract not being fulfilled, and the just blatant, I don't care, it's not my money attitude, costs you a lot of money, and that doesn't show up in the budget directly. You don't see that. It's hidden. And it's unfortunate on some of the stuff that I've read, and having been a board member is very painful. It is to be cut apart by people who don't know the full gamut of things. I mean, we have one board member, I read it in the Navarre Press, that said, oh, I was on the board and I don't like what the board's doing, and they did something outside of a meeting. That same person resigned after being on the board for, I think, a month, because she made a deal with two board members and they didn't follow through, so she quit. So it's kind of amazing how people act. But I would ask you this. I'd ask you to do the human thing and to do the right thing. And I've got my taste of it when I was on the board. Is put some faith in them. You can't just throw them to the side. And one of the unfortunate parts for everybody that's in a homeowners association, there's a law, 720. You really don't have much. You can't really demand from a board. You can put them in power and you can take them out of power. But the board has the right to do what they want to do. And like it or not, that's the way it is. You elected them and you can't arbitrarily change that. And at least give them a chance, I think. I know it's going to be a rough road going from having a management corporation and then none. But at one time, our board did vote to get rid of them. This, not just now, but this was prior. And maybe we should have followed through. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Well,
I just, a couple things I want to talk about. First, it seems like we're on this cheap plan. Now, I don't know how bad our organization is financially completely. It doesn't seem like we're terrible. I mean, I've lived here 10 years and we're not in bankruptcy, we're not, falling apart. We have some maintenance issues. Right now, I'm embarrassed by our parking lot. I walked in here, I used to come up here more, I'm busy right now, I don't come up here. I'm embarrassed by it. But now we can't even fix it because our board made backroom deals to hire a company and spend $55,000. And now we can't fix things, isn't that right? Or we're not gonna be able to fix things, so we have to go back and pull permits till 1981. So now we're gonna have to live with this tore up parking lot. The point for me is this. You, ma'am, talked about the previous $200,000 plus that was spent and how bad that contract was because it didn't have a warranty in it. That was a decision of a previous board.
That's right.
That is precisely why we need a management company to check and balance our board, review our contracts, and go, wait a minute, you're spending $200,000, you're gonna get a warranty? The board continues to make bad decisions. Over and over again in my time living here, I've seen good boards, I've seen bad boards. The board negotiates our contracts. Or does the First Service negotiate our contracts? Maybe with both of them there, you got more eyes on something, you have a better thing. I'm not necessarily for or against the management company, because I've lived here long enough and seen both ways. But it seems to me with the current structure that we have, and the last few boards have been maybe not making the best decisions for our organization, we need someone to help us make better decisions. So firing the board, there's tangible dollars, yes, but then there are untangible benefits to having a large organization with a lot of experience. FSR has a lot of experience and is a large organization. I would rather pay a good mechanic to fix my car one time than pay a bad mechanic 6 times to fix it.
Okay.
So to continue to stand, you keep coming up here and you keep saying, well, this previous contractor, this previous board, that is proof that the board does not negotiate well and we need additional support. We have made bad decisions as an organization because the boards have not done good negotiation. I'm going to spend $200,000 and I'm not going to get a warranty. Maybe you can't get a warranty, but you should get something. And again, in backstepping that rain event we had, you can't really blame anybody. That was a disaster. But then to go behind the process and hire a company, and I would like to know, are there open discussions, are there meeting minutes, is there some kind of recording when they made a decision to hire that
Yeah.
There is? Good, that's good, so we can review that. Anyway, I just am uncomfortable with the way that our boards have acted for the past 3 boards that I'm aware of, I'm uncomfortable with. So I am happy to have a management company to back me up as a member, because I'm very worried about what's going on right now.
When the contract for Road Zig was in excess of $200,000, that was a board decision, correct? There was a bid that was taken by the board. Was First Services in place and also aware of the bid and part of the bid process?
Yes.
Yes. So they're wherever you are. So when the decision was made to sign that contract, First Services was a part of the board, was a part of this, and the board was, okay, so we did have.
Okay.
Exactly, so that's what I'm saying is that your point, we need First Services to watch the board. Where were they when this decision got made? They were sitting right at the table signing the papers. And, the other question, except she's not. When it comes to the salary and wages, when I was up here before, I meant to say that if you want to know what we've been paying each year incrementally in wages, that is available on the website. All of that information is out there and available. And what you will see is typically what you would expect to see on wages, an incremental increase every single year.
5% every year, 5%.
Right. But where you will see the big increase is
Nobody gets a
between
5% pay raise every
2013.
year.
I'm gonna,
With no accountability.
yeah, we can talk about that too, I'm with you there. But where you will see the big increase is between 2013 and 2014. It was a much bigger increase than what you'll see going back as many years as you want to go back.
The issue of having a company to fall back on is absolutely untrue. Like I discussed before about money being missing, the company never paid that money back.
Yep.
Right.
With Roads Inc., there's a thing called preferred vendors. Now, preferred vendors, in my mind, says, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's what preferred vendor says to me. I might be wrong, you know.
I don't think.
But certainly, how would that be any different than just having two board members say, yeah, you know, let's pick Joe so-and-so? It's actually worse, because there's only one person making the decision. So preferred vendors is supposed to be an advantage for us, but I don't think it was, because we had to go and find the people anyway. When the decision was made with Roads Inc., it was a board decision. It was a pure board decision. Did they have input? Yes, they did. And I guess where some of the problem lays when we talk about preferred vendors and we talk about one person saying, well, here's the three that we have. Now, I'm not saying that they picked any of the three. I wouldn't say that because I don't know that. But it does leave it open for speculation, and it does uninvolve the board in a way, and they should be held accountable. Like I discussed, asked about why Roads Inc. weren't held to the fire, and why didn't you tell the new board, and you know, all of those questions come to mind. So I really don't see an advantage, a personal advantage. Think about that for a minute. A personal advantage is somebody picking a preferred vendor. I'm sometimes very leery of that. Thank you.
Beth Walter, I was on the board when we selected Roads Inc., and I just wanted to point out that one of the vendors that was in the running for that was Brown's Haulings, and the reason they were not selected is because when they were being vetted by First Service, it was found that they falsified insurance documents. Second, Roads Inc. came back here several times to do repair work. After the 500-year reign, they also offered to come back and do repair work. I don't know what happened during that, but they did offer to come back.
Yvonne Harper, I just want to state again that the point, in my opinion, is that this conversation that we're having today should have been had at the last board meeting, because the item agenda was discussion. There was a 5-minute monologue, a vote, and that was it. Just like, I just went and got this, so you know, it's not up there. I took it, the board, the meeting agenda for Tuesday. I will put it back when I'm done. But it states here, new business, discussion regarding human resources company and motion to accept a company. I don't know about anyone else in this room, but I don't know what that company is. There's been no vetting of this company by the membership. And regardless of what certain board members may think of other board members, they represent us. There is not a boss who gets to decide and then the other board members follow along like good little children. That's not what this is. They represent us. And this process stinks because they have not allowed for us to provide any input. And to me, again, First Services may not be the best company. Maybe we shouldn't have a management company. But that is a decision that they should have allowed us to provide input. They didn't. They had it up for discussion. They voted on it. 2 of the board members were blindsided. They voted 3-2. They gave a letter to First Services. That's not open. That's closed. That's backdoor politics. And you know what? I'm a little tired of it. Just like this discussion. Does anybody know what company they're looking at? No. I don't. There's not anywhere up on the website, or not the website, but any information, that has been emailed on who this company is. But I guarantee you, come Tuesday, they probably already know. At least 2 of the board members know who this company is. They'll discuss it. One of the board members will go along, 3 to 2. Come Tuesday, we'll have a new HR company. And we won't know who that is until Tuesday. That's not right.
With respect to the Roads Inc. contract, I know Pat, you made some points, but you got to realize that our board was the one to include, Pat's the one to sign the contract. Okay, so I mean, all right. The timing, it's fortuitous timing. When we had that 500-year flood, it is true. Nobody will ever insure such an event. Cat 5 hurricane, you're not going to find anybody that's going to build some house or structure up to code for a Cat 5, right? It's mostly 140 miles an hour in Florida. Anything above that, sorry. Roads Inc. was set to come back, and it was the timing of the board turnover. At the last 2 meetings prior to July, our board was ready to, we were locked and loaded and ready to make those fixes. They were going to do a bunch of warranty work, and there were some additional things they were going to do. For example, fix the parking lot at the same time. I won't throw Alex, but there was certain individuals in the audience that were throwing conniptions. They didn't want us as a outgoing board to make votes on something for you folks. And in deference to them, we looked at each other. We were ready to vote. Gene and I, Gene threw some numbers out there, and I actually was not really comfortable with that. So we deferred to the next board. We could have pulled the trigger for another 200K, and we did not. And we assumed that the very first thing that would have happened was there would have been some discussion with roads, we had hoped, and we would have a new parking lot right now. And obviously, we're not going to have a new parking lot for probably 6 months because we're in the penalty box, and what's going to happen is, in the eyes of DEP and the county, we're going to be liars when it's all said and done. That's my opinion. But we have lost a ton of credibility with that turnover from the board. The $55,000 thing, whatever that was, it's going to be an issue, folks. You're not going to have a parking lot for probably a year from now. And again, our last board was ready to pull the trigger. We deferred to Alex Crawford was the loudest yelling that you can't spend the money when you don't care, you're going away. Well, of course we care. We still live here. But we deferred to that board, and that's where there's been a lack of action, not First Service. First Service contract, when I signed the damn contract, and it says that we are responsible to allow them to be participants in any vetting, negotiating, etc. with any outside vendor. They were completely cut out of the process. Holly by the Sea board was in violation of the contract with First Service. You can't then turn around, as Ivana said, and blame First Service when they weren't able to do what we signed the contract for. I personally signed that contract.
Again, Phyllis Klon, I just want to make one point. What I'm hearing here is everyone, particular incidences, no one is infallible. Management company is not infallible. The board is not infallible. But what concerns me is we talk about vetting. What experience does the board have? I want to vet them. What experience, who on the board managing a property?
I have 0.
So, okay, well then I will sit here, and again, the point being is having a discussion whether we're going to have a management company or not. We weren't allowed to have that to say, so what is your experience? What have you done? Because it is a big scope, and that's all I'm saying. Size and scope, it's just not easy, and I would like to, obviously I don't think we're going to have the opportunity to do that. Show me what's good. Show me your experience. Show me that you guys can do this, then I wouldn't have a problem with switching over. But I don't know that, and I don't know if anybody else knows that. So that's my concern.
I've heard a lot this morning about incidents and
Get in the mic and your name, please.
So my name is Joe Neeson.
I don't know.
My question is to reflect, if we could for a moment, reflect on some of the things we've heard this morning, are primarily around people, previous events, and what point do we start thinking about how do we move forward from where we are? And the question comes up, how would we know what a successful management of our homeowners association would be? Do we have any idea of what it is we're expecting from a management company? Do we measure that on a regular basis? Would we know how to evaluate a new management company, or would we be better off without one? What things are we looking for? What requirements do we even have? Are those documented anywhere? Have we asked that question before? So unless we know what we want, how can we say the group we've got now isn't working out? How can we know what it is we want in a new group? Or do we not even want one? If we're not measuring anything, there's no way for anyone to know. If we can't define what it is what we want, then how can anyone be successful? By the same token, to the other point of view, how can anyone be said to fail? So unless we're documenting what we want, unless we're measuring what it is that's happening and comparing that against our expectations, it's just a bunch of people pulling up individual events and saying, yes, I liked this, or no, I didn't like that. Are we prepared? Is the homeowners, is the board, is the association as a whole, that being all of us, prepared to spend the time to document what it is we want? It seems to me we aren't. So until we get to that point, how do we move forward? There is no path forward until we can define our requirements.
I want to present just a couple of things, and of course, the same situation will occur. Anybody that wants to respond can, and please get in line. One of the things that I want to address is very much like this last gentleman. Part of the problem at Holly by the Sea is we have lacked continuity over at least 10 years. We, almost every 2 years, we have had a new general manager. During that period of time, with all of these new general managers, 4 of them had on-the-job training on our dime, and at least 2 of them, we, the membership, paid for their education and their licensing, including a CPA license. In one instance, we had a CPA who was our general manager. Does anybody even begin to think that it's a good idea to have a general manager who is also in charge of the money? Not a good idea. And that happened. There was a lack of professionalism with these people because they were training. They didn't have the background. They didn't have the experience. There was poor customer service, probably not intentionally. The poor customer service was probably because these people were training on the job. They didn't have any strong backup from previous experience. Additionally, we wasted money because these people, previous general managers, didn't know. We actually spent money for computer software that was a home-based program. That's not a good idea. That's a waste of money. Wrong programs equal wasted money. Poor computer systems and backup. What does that mean to us as membership? That means that we can't find the documents that we make a request for. Things have been greatly cleaned up with First Service being involved. We now have an off-site server backup, and we have on-site backup. Records are available now and more easily retrieved should you make a records request, which is your right and privilege as a member. The board changes 2 or 3 members every year. We lack continuity. So one board may do a tremendous amount of research and become highly familiar with 720, our governing documents, the covenants, and then it's a tiring job. It would be nice if previous board members would mentor new board members. That doesn't really happen. So who do we have? We have a general manager who is a professional who can help provide information. Anybody want to speak to any of that, or would you like me to?
Yes. I'd like to speak to that. The mentoring part, I'd be more than happy to help anybody that asks for it. The second part of that is when you talked about the knowledge of 720. And you're right, a professional should know 720, but I'm afraid your professional right now has put us in jeopardy as far as lawsuit, because I may file a lawsuit. I had asked for a document, and according to 720, which is the law that governs both boards and management, they're supposed to supply that document within I think it's 90 days. And they went over the timeline. And then I was told, well, that's not their rules. I don't care about their rules, I care about the law, and they should too. They've also made some slanderous remarks, in my opinion. And so they kind of make you wonder whether they really know their business or not. And they don't know everything, I'm sure they don't. 720 is it's not that complex, but I did read in 720 recently that a board member shouldn't have to wait 90 days for a document. Okay, I've recently read that. And they failed to do their job. And that is a pretty dangerous thing. They should give a board member the document within, say, 2 or 3 days. When you wait months to give your documents, you got a problem. And we have a problem.
I just wanted to add that I agree with absolutely everything on here. We do need to have continuity. That's the only way we can get to determining what success would be like as a homeowners association and how to measure it. The only question I have is do we have to have a management company to achieve this level of continuity? Are we not smart enough?
No.
Yes. We're just not.
The next thing I would like to address, at least in my opinion, is what your board of directors should do. I believe the board of directors should have a published plan and goals for the year. Something that all of you could review, and if you wanted to, could put your own thoughts to it so that the board knows what the membership wants. This should be clear. We should know this. I believe the membership should be able to comment on this plan. I believe that the board should prioritize projects and spending. We talked about the parking lot. I think it's probably true. It's probably going to be a year, and that's because of what happened with the erosion. Have board discussions at duly called and noticed meetings so that members are informed. Have proper agendas for meetings that should be followed. All board emails should be considered official records. I think we need to retain the long-range planning committee for continuity from year to year. I think this is a committee that started, I believe, I don't know, 6, maybe 7 years ago, and it was called 5-year plan or something like that. I think the long-range planning committee is necessary to the continuity of what we do here in Holly by the Sea. Any comments?
Good.
Billy Neal, 2418 Pine Needle. I am not going to specifically address this slide, but I'm going to voice my concerns over the process that was used, which Yvonne alluded to earlier, about the meeting in December, 2nd of December, I believe, in which a late addition to the agenda was the discussion of the First Service residential contract, discussion of the contract. If you notice the agenda items that come out, usually if an issue is going to be voted on, that it's indicated on the agenda that a vote is to be taken, so members, if they specifically are concerned about an issue, they can come and address those concerns. There was nothing on there about a vote. I was not at that meeting, however, I'm told that after a few minutes of some information and claims made by the board president at that meeting, that then a vote was called and there was 3 members that voted for it. We have one board member that, at least the last 3 board meetings that I've attended to, they have called in on the telephone and not actually been available at the meeting. That particular meeting, I was told that the board member called in specifically for the vote. So wasn't really at the meeting, wasn't available to discuss or answer questions posed by the members and supported the issue. That, to me, should be an indication that there was some discussion going on prior to that meeting. Additionally, the letters were prepared to hand to the vice president of First Service Residential at the meeting. So there had to be some work done prior to that meeting to submit a termination letter to First Services. At the meeting held on the 2nd of January, something very similar happened. The issue was the selection of an engineer to do the engineering work for the erosion project down there, and also to attend the meeting, which was the next day, I believe, with DEP, or maybe it was 2 days later, 4 days later, okay. Once again, one of the board members called in for that specific issue. And that particular board member is supposed to be the one that has construction, erosion, water control experience and background. I specifically asked him to address his position and why he supported this individual contractor versus the other one, and all of the engineers I suspect are good engineers, but there has to be some reason that you picked this particular person to do the job. And he had no comments at all. Every time I've asked him a question, there's been no comment. I've attempted to contact board members, this particular board members, on at least 6 different occasions, via email, phone call, and even dropped off a letter. That same letter was made available here at the rec center for him to pick up as a board member. Hasn't been picked up, no response. I did speak to one board member yesterday and asked about being here, and it happens to be your husband, Bill Crouch.
I know, I was thinking.
He indicated that he had a commitment to attend this project out on the beach. I can understand that. I had a meeting with him a couple weeks ago, and it had to do with my concerns because of the election process, and then voting on to terminate the contract without having a discussion like this with the members, because the board president indicated that she suspected that the majority of the members supported the decision to terminate the contract. I personally reached out to more than 1,000 people that live in Holly by the Sea and asked that question. When you make a statement that the majority of people support the issue, the decision, whatever it is, if somebody should have talked to those people and they know that they do it. Not one person of that 1,000 plus people responded that they had been asked. So I'll ask that question today. The decision to make, to provide determination to First Services, if you were asked that question prior to that board meeting on the 2nd of December, would you please raise your hand?
I was asked.
Okay, one person.
I was asked.
2 people. That's not the majority. Okay? That's not the majority. So somebody is trying to convince the membership that they have the support of the majority members of our community, and I don't think that that's the case. It may be, and I would be the first to support it if facts are presented and data shows that that was a bad decision or they're not doing their job. And if they're not doing their job, whose fault is it? It's the board's fault, because the board should evaluate that on a monthly, a quarterly, a yearly basis. And if you're not doing your job, look, you have a review. You told us you were going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You didn't do it. So if you don't come online within a certain time period, then you guys are out of here, or you have to make these adjustments. One complaint I have, and I know a lot of people do also with First Services, is the piece of crap website that we now have for our community. And that's been a complaint of mine from the start. We had problems with our website prior to First Services, which was controlled by the general manager. And it had problems too. The last time we really had any freedom of speech and had valid and up-to-date information was when the website was administered by 2 volunteers, and I think one of them is in the room here. Did I see you, Craig? Yeah. Craig Walker over here, who was a board member also, and Cheryl Rothwell. Maybe it's time that we do that again. Maybe they don't have the knowledge or expertise to do web services.
They should have did.
I don't think it's a good decision, though, for one board member to have all the control of the information for our membership. That's on the agenda for the meeting next week. If you agree or don't agree with that decision, please come to that meeting and voice your concerns. There's other ways to get web services or to put First Services on record of to get that fixed, and we want it fixed like you got a week. So all I would say, my big complaint about what happened was the process that was used. You know, we're supposed to be professionals, a professional organization. And if you're going to do what they did, it should have been announced in advance. They should have had a meeting like this, got the feedback, concerns, taken them to the contractor and said, look, you got to fix these things or we are going to terminate the contract, not the way that they did it. One person, let me just say, one person, when that discussion went on, one person from the audience, it's my understanding, like I said, I wasn't there, but this is what I was told. One person was allowed to speak or address the issue, and that person is standing behind me. He was called by the board president to speak. There was other people at the meeting that wanted to speak, but they weren't allowed to speak. That's not right.
Earl Dean, 7456 Woodmont Street. We have a big turnout, and everybody in here, such as Billy Neal, Cindy, Sandy, and anybody else that don't like what I'm saying, need to think about it. Everyone here is concerned about the contract, First Services. You should have been coming to board meetings and showing up like this. Am I right or wrong? Yes. You didn't do it. But at the final hour, you want to come up and complain now. No. This is not the time. What we need to be thinking about is one thing. What are we going to do next month? We need to be looking forward, not behind us. If anybody don't like what the board does, and I've done it, I don't know who else, and I know Pat has. If you got a complaint, go and file a complaint. Just don't sit up here and bicker between us. File a complaint with the state against the board. Now, I've talked to all the board members. Some of them agree with me and disagree with me. Some have said, stop talking to me. That's okay. We're going to do that. But what we need to do is look to see what we're going forward with our organization. What has happened in the past, we can't go back and fix. The board has voted. What are you going to do? Ask them to change? What if you don't change? you're still gonna complain. We need to find out where we're gonna go after first services is gone. Nobody's thinking that far ahead, but we need to be thinking about that. Because once they're out of here, we can't come back here and talk about what happened. We need to look forward. So let's start looking forward and stop bickering about what the board has done. The vote was taken, whether you like it or not. The proper way to address that is file a complaint. File a complaint with the state, and that's what's in the covenants and in 720. If we don't do that, you're just spinning your wheels. I'm not gonna say anything about what first service has done or hasn't done in the past. That's behind us. We need to think about where are we going in 15 days? Because the handwriting's on the wall. You have to look at it. Thank you.
Maybe I wanted to read your notes. My name is Jeff Roberts. I live on Crescent Road. I've lived in Holly by the Sea for a little over 2 years. I've lived in Navarre for about a decade, and I've seen a lot of things with Holly by the Sea that it seems like the same things, they kind of go back and forth, and a lot of it to me seems to be that the people that are on the board are not going to be perfect. They're not engineers, they're not CPAs in a lot of situations, but they need to be able to realize when decisions have been made that as things are going the wrong direction, hey, we've made a mistake, we need to slow down, we need to stop this, we need to fix it. They need to be able to admit that mistakes were made and try and correct those situations. What I'm looking at now and what I've seen, I've been coming to meetings for the last few months since I realized that there were issues. There are some major issues. It started with the roof, there was a lot of money there. The erosion, there's a lot of money there, and it just continues. But we're in a situation now that decisions are being made without the full board's knowledge. And it's being made without the membership knowledge. I mean, it's painfully obvious on social media. Earlier this week on Facebook, there's a website there's a board member that posted an advertisement for the position for manager. I don't know if you read it, but they're trying to fill this position as of February 1st, from what I understand, they're terminating the contract. Having less than a month to fill this position and advertising only on a closed social media group is lunacy to me. And somebody asked a question, and this was a reply from one of the board members. And I quote, "We have someone in mind and resume in hand. We are just doing due diligence and making sure we are opening up to everyone that might be interested." As far as I'm concerned, there are multiple websites that can be posted on. And having the current management company pushed out in 60 days without them having any kind of turnover with a new management company or a CAM or whatever they're going to go with it's bizarre. On top of that, I've had other conversations. It seems there are 3 people from what I've seen, and they're not here, that are making decisions for the board. It doesn't appear to me that these 2 individuals that are here and fielding questions are in any way in the loop. I spoke with Ms. Crawford when she first took office, and I was explaining to her a problem with a lot that was cleared that I believe illegally. And she said to me, and I quote, "Well, builders can do whatever they want anyway." That's not the kind of attitude that our board members need to have. They are allowed, and they have the right to question what's being done, not necessarily with each individual company, but as a process. It just, to me, I'm going to finish up with this. There's a lot of passion, and that's good. We need to be able to listen to each other's views and come up with a combined agreement on the way things need to be. Not everybody's going to be happy, I understand that. But everybody needs to be able to be involved. Not 3 people. 3 people is not the majority. It's 3 people.
Before you sit down, could you go back to that Facebook page, was it?
Yeah.
Did I hear you say they already have somebody in mind?
Quote from your husband.
My husband, yes, he said.
We
that.
have someone in mind and resume in hand. We are just doing due diligence and making sure we are opening up to those of you who might be interested.
So once again, they already picked somebody.
And here's that.
You picked somebody, right?
You picked them.
Exactly.
Jan, he told me that also. He told me that face to face.
3-member board.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tom Kirkham. I have one major concern. I used to be a city councilman. I've been here for over 2 years. I've been on most of everything that's been going on for the last 2 years. I've been here at board meetings, other than lately because I got a full-time job. Here's my major concern, and I read through this whole thing, and I analyzed this stuff. I used to be an operation, I was a manager, I'm retired military, and I've got a large background. I've been on 3 committees as a councilman. I helped run a city, all right? I was on Parks and Recreational, I was on Building Streets and Sidewalks, and I was on Safety and Health Committee. Running a city is not easy, and technically this is a small city. One of the major problems that I have, one of the concerns that I have with this, major concerns, is this says, the signed contract also states that the association shall not interfere, the association, that's you guys, us, right? Shall not interfere nor permit, allow, or cause any of its officers, directors, or members to interfere with TCG in the performance of its duties or the exercise of its powers hereunder. That is a legal term that is put in a contract by a lawyer. All right? Who is watching them?
Nobody.
That's what I'm saying. Who is watching them?
Nobody.
The board doesn't have the power to do that, not according to that statement.
Right.
The board don't have the power. Read that. Ask any lawyer.
That's right.
They don't have the power. They can tell the board to pound salt.
They did.
Okay?
That's what they're doing now.
All right? I'm not standing up here necessarily agreeing or disagreeing. I read this whole thing. I used to be a chief investigator for the Inspector General's office for 5 years. I was in law enforcement for 23 years in auxiliary officer. I analyze things. I sit back with an open mind. I take a look at what's going on. I'm 67 years old. I got about 40 years in management. But when I see this kind of stuff, it's in a contract, and I'm surprised that the last board, whoever signed this, signed it with that in there. That is detrimental to this association. I'm not saying to get rid of them. I'm not saying to keep them. But something else needs to be done. Because you don't have the power, they don't have the power, because of that statement, the legal statement, absolutely right, they can sue you.
We need to get a new attorney.
Okay?
Who
That's my big
reviewed that
possibility.
contract.
Absolutely true. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, you need to really take a look. If you haven't read this, you need to read it. But Sandy, I believe this is all correct now, okay, from what she puts in here.